Superheroes, we all know them, muscular, tight, some of them wearing their undies on the outside. We all know what superheroes are, and I'm sure the MCU has beat the concept of it into our skulls whether we like it or not. But even still, superheroes are seen as the highest form of fiction, something that just can't be real, something that just can't make sense. And it's the reason why fascinating it as a kid was seen as weird or nerdy at the time. Superhero media has tried bringing this concept into realism, telling the story of a realistic world if superheroes existed. Many film industries has tackled it, but for me, there's no show that does it better than Oh, come on, you saw that one coming. I'll explain this in a way it makes sense. Realism, especially to superheroes, is looking at everything a superhero is, what they stand for, and viewing it through the lens of our own world. What would happen if they existed in the so-called world we live in? How would it be? Realism in this sense is saying how would humans react if we knew that just by living our lives or enjoying the beach, someone could be flying at freakishly high speeds and ram us. How do we remedy this? How would humans act or behave living such a life? Superheroes are here to stay, and I frankly don't see it going anywhere anytime soon, even if they have to reboot them as many times as possible to keep them relevant. And through all this, there have been very interesting takes on them, some poking fun at the superhero tropes or trying to ground them in a realistic light, and that's exactly what we are tackling in this video. When it comes to a realistic take on superheroes, there's always two different medias that always comes to mind for me, and that's the DCU and The Boys. Two shows that claims to be about superheroes but not entirely about superheroes. The DCU, especially under Zack Snyder's involvement with it, had a very different take on superheroes we knew and loved. Superheroes were dark, gritty, loved to monologue and brood a lot. It's telling the story of gods amongst men, which was seen heavily from the Man of Steel and the Batman v Superman movies. How would the world react if there's an alien walking amongst us with the powers to end life on Earth or is provoked to do so? As far as realism seems to go, the DCU or Zack Snyder's take on it was just being dark, nothing more or less. And The Boys, oh boy. Now this show is the one. Not only does it poke fun at superheroes in general, but also tries to give a realistic take on it. And let's just say it takes it way too far. Long story short, it tells the story of if superheroes existed specifically in a world as corrupt and crazy as ours, ruled by publicity, media propaganda, and if ego-infested individuals had superpowers. Just what would the world be like? How would these superheroes interact with this version of a world, where being a superhero is marketable to its extreme? And also sadly, that is also the problem with The Boys. Everything is too extreme and overly exaggerated. Even if it tries to be realistic and set itself in a specific part of a world, it just takes things way too far. Even though I watch this show and I also enjoy it, I find it a bit disturbing, which is fine, but as all it tries to shove in our faces, shock value and plenty of gore and stupid moments. So what exactly does Invincible do differently that I picture it a more realistic take on superheroes than many others? I think it's cause it takes the best and worst qualities of superheroes and combines them to create something better. Mark Grayson wanted to be a superhero cause he lives in a world where superheroes are everything, and on top of that his father is freaking Superman. And when you watch this show, you see as this is just a normal cliche of superheroes just told in a slightly terrible animation. But when it turns from this to this, now, if this was an everyday take on superheroes, most will just have this resolved in the more out-of-pocket way to keep the tension longer, but Invincible uses this as a construct for other characters to matter. Debbie investigating Nolan's reveal to Mark, and the aftermath, all that stemming from this one scene where Nolan 1v7's the Guardians of the Globe. Now I'm not here to gloat or glaze the entire narrative weight of this show, but emphasize that what this show does is proving that actions have consequences that can and will ruin everything in the long run. Again, not saying superhero takes from other forms of media don't tackle this concept in their own unique way, but they always miss the point. Why would something so significant be resolved too easily, casually, or dragged too long? It stops making sense. Maybe it's due to what demographic it's aimed at or just how long it can carry the overall plot. Invincible shows that superheroes, well, most of them are humans, and those who aren't has the complexity of one. We are shown that when superheroes fight, they just can't save everyone, or sometimes there's nothing to save. There's always collateral damage and there's no avoiding it. Humans are fragile and weak, and anyone who surpasses that weakness and becomes something more can become humanity's biggest threat or ally. The show tackles how unchecked power can lead to uncontrolled devastation. As I said before, that superheroes come out of two, either to poke fun at superhero tropes or tries to ground them into reality, and Invincible does does this well, like the idea of the no-kill rule, a concept held by nearly every superhero out there that they shouldn't kill no matter what. Invincible tackles this and tells you if you are given this power and you're pushed to your absolute limit, you as a normal realistic human being, can you really obey that rule and don't actually kill anyone or not hold back? An ideology like this is what Invincible fights with, and it's a lesson he had to learn the hard way when things started getting too intense for him, with villains showing up left and right to challenge him even if they have to hurt people closest to him, and when he underestimates them, he always gets a black eye and some missing teeth to remember them by. The show also tackles being a superhero and trying to live a normal life. Just how can you handle the two lives when you've been drilled in the value of life, which makes you as a superhero want to save people, but also you want a normal life as well, surrounded by people you care about, but can't cause it's difficult. Invincible has to be a boyfriend, a son, a brother, a student, a superhero, and a soldier. And there's also a freaking genocidal maniac species planning to take over the earth, and all this responsibility is on Invincible's shoulders. The Invincible show and Invincible as a superhero is different and realistic, at least to me. Although there's plenty it's avoiding to tackle and it can't help but lean further into the silliness of superheroes at times, it actually lives up to its reputation, Invincible. Although that has been beaten to death as a meme, and it makes sense, like why would you name yourself Invincible and still get your ass beat every time? Think, Mark! One of the biggest interesting aspects of Invincible and also his strongest suit is the characters, as even though they are animated, you can still understand the emotional weight in everything. The show delves into grounded aspects of every human lives and puts that in the superhero system. Characters like Debbie, who has to live with the fact that her husband, who she loved for years, ended up lying to her and becoming a genocidal maniac. That guilt she carries throughout the series is real. Mark having to, despite his father's rampage, still be a superhero, at the same time suffer through PTSD, and even so, it doesn't end there. He has to deal with keeping his family safe, being a moral compass for his brother, save the world for intergalactic threat, and had PTSD again just fighting one of them. All this after having the world turned upside down from different versions of himself, all because he didn't make sure he did what he had to do and the world paid the price. Or a character like Cecil, who had a scuffle with Invincible because he used every resource he could to keep the planet safe, even if he has to work with villains, even if it contradicts what it means to be a superhero. All this led to a conflict between the two, and that's where the show gives the audience two sides. No one is right and no one is entirely wrong. I think the character with the best development in this series is everyone's favorite, Nolan Grayson. Having to use tough love to get his son to see his way the way of the Viltrumite, even if he had to be brutal about it, and the show feeds you that. But we are also aware that this is not what he wants, and throughout season 2 and 3 we see glimpses of how he wants to change or has changed for the better. I don't want to talk much on this video cause I know editing that will be hell, but I think I've been able to lay down my thoughts with so little. I'm not saying that most superhero mediums don't tackle realistic concepts in superheroes. I'm saying they always lean on one aspect, not the complexity of it, or sometimes take things a bit too off the rail at times, or it's just used in a few instances and then abandoned. But Invincible uses that as the entire theme of the show. He's invincible not because he's indestructible or something, I mean, it's obvious, but because despite all that he tries to get back up and fight, and so does the world itself. But you may not agree with me on this one, and for most of you I'm speaking total gibberish. Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts in the comments. Do you think Invincible is a good realistic take on superheroes, or is there any other show or media you think did it better? And while you are down there, you could also like and subscribe to help grow the channel and so you don't miss the next upload. But that's it for me on this video. I'm out.